Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our February 12th City of New Ulm Park and Recreation Commission meeting. First item of business will be welcome and introductions, but I don't see that anyone is new here today. Welcome to our new commissioners for 2018. Glad you're back, Jim and Tammy. And welcome to our guests that are here as well. If it's okay, we'll move on to item number 2 for our new business, and it's approval of this afternoon's agenda. Again, this was sent out ahead of time. Hopefully people had a chance to review the agenda. I would look for any comments, recommendations, or approval of the February 12th agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Also sent out in the packet were meeting minutes from the January 8th meeting, the last time we were together. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review those. Would also look for comments or any corrections. And if there are no corrections, then would look for a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and we have a second. Any more discussion on the January 8th meeting minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4 on our agenda was the January 2018 Department Activity Report. Lots of information on programming, parks, community center, recreation center. Would look for questions or any comments on the January 2018 report. Any additional commentary from Director Schmitz or Assistant Director Corman on the month of January?
Chair Fryer and Commissioners, the only thing I would add is that programs are ongoing and you're still able to register for programs that haven't taken place yet online. The brochure is available in hard copy at numerous locations and, of course, on the website. We had a great program this past weekend, our snow day in the park, which we haven't had every winter. And that was a highly successful Saturday afternoon in Harmon Park.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, the January activity report will be filed with the meeting minutes. We're on to item number 5, City Council meeting recap. There were 2 City Council meetings. Director Schmitz, if you would provide a short update.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. January 16th saw the City Council go ahead and take action on the leash law, directing a change from just having a leash law on the trail to having a leash required for cats and dogs on all public property within city limits. They also asked for the possibility of up to 3 more off-leash dog areas. They accepted the grant and authorized entering into an agreement with the Minnesota Historical Society on a conditions assessment study at Herman Monument. They accepted the donations and authorized purchase of the small parcel of land at South Market Park. And then they waived the fee for use at the Civic Center for the annual Youth Career Expo. Feb 6 saw the City Council authorize discussions with the EDA on possible acquisition of the parcel next to Kiesling House, Kiesling Park, between Kiesling House and the Lamplighter. And that meeting takes place tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. right here at City Hall. If you're at all interested in coming to that, we'll see what the EDA has to think about transferring land from their jurisdiction to the Park and Recreation Department, city's jurisdiction. And then they received some information about Civic Center improvements, Civic Center projects related to the New Ulm Steel hockey team as a tenant, and the anticipation of discussions and lease negotiations over their next lease. That's it for the past 2 city council meetings.
Okay. On the topic of the New Ulm Steel, I know there was quite a bit of conversation here probably a year ago or however long it was when we were working on that lease arrangement. Read some of the article in the newspaper. From from an attendance standpoint, how are they doing compared to what was projected or hoped for with fan attendance?
Chair Fryer and Commissioners, I can't speak for the ownership, but the games I attend are well attended. It's a South Arena. There's 1,000 seats in that bleacher area if you, based on, I think, 18-inch seating per person. So I don't think they've maxed out at 1,000 people yet, but certainly you see more people than vacant bleacher area at the games I attend. One item in the lease agreement is simply if they don't average 400 or more paid attendance at the gate, it's one of their various opt-out options in the agreement, and that's been the case on either year. It could be back to year one or this year. And so they are planning to renegotiate next lease with the city.
All right. Well, hopefully that goes well. Any other questions on the city council meetings? All right. Thank you, Director Schmitz. On to old business. Under the renew update, I'll probably ask Director Schmitz to go first with updates on renew, and then we can discuss a little bit more here.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. A couple of items we need to talk about and get kind of teed up for the year. First one on the list is subcommittees. When we had the first round of local option sales tax projects in the late 90s and kicked off in 2000, there were subcommittees established for the three major projects back then: the Civic Center, the Community Center, and Vogel Fieldhouse. Well, we have 7 projects this time, and so I anticipate giving all 9 Park and Rec commissioners the opportunity to sit on one or more of those subcommittees. So expect an email coming out shortly describing those options and opportunities. There's, what the 7 projects are. I don't need to go into them. But think about if there's 1 or 2 that you have a particular interest in or expertise in to help with. We will certainly be hiring architects and engineers and designers and so on these various projects. But community input, community involvement is very important in the process. And we certainly, this is a Park and Rec, all 7 of these are Park and Recreation projects. So we expect all the efforts to go through the Park and Rec Commission, recommendations, and then we'll probably have an executive committee established to work directly with the contractors and the designers. But our recommendations will also funnel through the City Council. City Council has ultimate authority on all these projects, but I know they appreciate recommendations and opinions from the Commission. So start thinking about the 7 projects and which of the subcommittees you would like to sit on. It will require a little bit more time and effort. I was a volunteer commissioner in your shoes back in the 90s, and we had some extra meetings. I was on the Civic Center subcommittee, and it was exciting to be a part of kind of some of the design process and design charrettes and so on. So expect that to be coming shortly. Some information we've discovered from a financial standpoint, the bonding standpoint. Generally, we think, the finance department thinks that the sales tax bonds should probably be grouped into the same package of sale that the general obligation bonds are sold. And that usually takes place in the summer. The GO bonds are streets and roads and sewers and so on. The city usually sells about $3 million a year in the GO Public Works bond area. The Public Utilities Commission has told us that they do not plan on having a bond sale in 2018. And if we want to keep it under the $10 million to get the best interest rate, we have $6.5 million, possibly up to $7 million in sales tax bonds that can initiate this summer. What else, let's see, related to the finances of that? We will be moving forward in the next couple of months with a resolution. We'll be going through the Park Commission and to forward onto the City Council a reimbursement resolution. So when that happens, from that point forward, we can use sales tax revenues to pay for work on the projects. And you can actually go back 60 days from the date of a reimbursement resolution to pay for invoices and expenses related to the design. Basically, we'll be talking about design for the first year. So that's a little information related to the upcoming finances. I am hopeful that at our next meeting in March, that we will have more of a package put together for you to recommend moving on to the City Council as far as more details. I'd like to mention a little bit about some of the projects. We know Johnson Park needs to be in the first package that we plan to begin design with this year. $1 million for improvements to the grandstand. And then we've drafted out a scope of work that we'll be using to hire engineers to help us with the designs at the grandstand. And we're working closely with the New Ulm Baseball Association to also vet some of those elements in the projects. We have engaged some experts just recently to start looking at the recreation center. You know, the aquatic facility is the big chunk to the south, the indoor water park that we've got an aquatic group looking at with us. And then the gymnastics center, the fitness center, the indoor playground, and I'm also putting into that mix an elevated track in hopes of separating the track users from the court users in the field house. So I think that within a few weeks, we'll have some information back with some broad expense, more detailed expense information on those improvements. And then also time frames. How long do they anticipate designing these components and elements versus construction of these? So we can, phase this in appropriately, not all at once, and to not have gaps over the next few years. We want to be designing and constructing on an expeditious schedule. Let's see, is there anything else I have related to Renew? Up at Herman Heights, we're engaging an civil engineering firm. We've done some preliminary work on the parking lots and the park entrance road. And I've got a meeting with the Superintendent Bertrand scheduled soon for continued discussion on the dome up at the senior high school. So I think that's all I have right now at this moment to add.
Okay, thanks for the updates. I have a few things to add, but why don't we take a pause and look for questions from the commission as it relates to those updates on subcommittee structure, financing, RFPs, and timelines. Questions? Probably the one thing I would add, Tom and I were able to meet, and what I had asked is just for us to understand as a commission how we can best support this work, and that was part of the conversation this afternoon around the committee work and the subcommittees. To me, there's, we've talked about this over the last couple of years. There's a timing element of this. One, to get the benefit of the projects, baseball. Obviously there's a window there, but I also see risk in terms of the legislation. Again, was passed nearly 12 months ago, but with a fixed amount of money. And right now we're kind of seeing interest rates move up. We're seeing inflation creep into the economy. And just to put that into real numbers, every 1% in interest rate increase is likely $1 million less for us to utilize on the projects. So that fixed amount was 14.8?
14.8 is our
14.8.
legislative authorization.
It wasn't indexed that if you wait 3 years and interest rates go up that you get more. It was 14.8. So if there's a 1% interest, that's risk for us as a community of got to figure out how to scale down the projects. And on a construction inflation risk. Every 5 percentage points increase in construction is about $750,000 less in projects. So there's a pace to it for enabled, as Tom had mentioned, for timelines. We can't have 7 going at once. But we're going to be very interested in leveraging this commission and city leaders and other community leaders to kind of move from discussing phase to we gotta start getting proposals and get plans working, or my fear is the list will continue to get slimmed down of what we're actually going to be able to have happen across the community. I think the positives for us, as Tom had mentioned, Director Schmitz, is on the financing end. Seems like that's all coming together for us. I was a bit worried on how much capacity we would have, but for 2018, there's up to $7 million. That should keep the community busy for a while on the first phase of projects. And there's about an 18-month window from when you issue those bonds to when need to be spent on the related project. So that would give us time for design, construction, other things to happen for kind of the first phase of projects. So I would just second what Director Schmitz said, is to be thinking about the projects that you would have an interest and willingness to help serve on those committees, so that we can kind of get that stood up and get that structure put in place so we can begin moving forward. Anything else on Renew?
I have one,
Feeling it
Chair.
might be on old business yet next month, so just in case you had something you didn't get to, we'll come back to it.
Certainly.
Yeah, Director Schmitz, please.
I have 2 items to add. One back to the finance. Actually, they're both financially related. Our understanding of the capacity in 2019 is significantly less, with the Public Utilities Commission planning to bond for some construction work in 2019. So we may have only $2 to $3 million available in 2019 in sales tax capacity if the council wants to keep it under the $10 million threshold for the lowest possible interest rate. So that is out there next year, 2019. The next item I want to mention is public-private partnerships. I think we all probably remember when the new senior high school was passed by referendum and being built. There was a significant private donation offered. I think it was $1 million for additional improvements in their auditorium. And I'm certain that's a possibility here also with our Renew projects. If there are individuals, organizations, families, anyone with an interest in one or more of the 7 projects to make them bigger and better, I can't imagine the Park and Recreation Commission and the City Council turning down private funding to further improve these amenities, whether it's a bigger, better playground or gymnastics center, things like that. So keep that in mind, and I hope that is spread throughout the media, and we'll also be including it in various press releases. But think about that in your sphere of influence, your friends and family and people that have an interest in our fine community. That's all I had to add.
Another reason to hope for a higher stock market value in the next year, right? Someone feels generous, but I think it's a great point. Director Schmitz, thanks for helping. That kind of combination of public-private partnership can enhance projects even beyond the initial vision with the right fit there. So, okay, let's move on, unless there were other questions on Renew. Other item of old business was additional off-leash dog parks or dog areas. Not dog parks, dog areas. Again, there was an action sheet included in the packet, couple pages. Director Schmitz, would you like to provide an overview and some recommendations for the commission to consider?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. As you know, the City Council expressed an interest in potentially up to 3 more off-leash dog areas. And you have in the list in today's packet, I would say there are about a dozen possible locations presented by the Park and Recreation Department. I'll just run through them quickly. The first one will start at the south end of town, the former putting green site, which is now a community garden. There's, it's along the Minnesota River. There's some natural areas, It's also connected to the city-owned berm that goes from basically 20th South to about 13th South and connects to Front Street. So there is a significant stretch of city-owned land down there, undeveloped. And that includes the first two, the putting green area itself and the flood control berm, the levee down in that area. South Market Park is next, moving northward. One of our urban wilderness areas on the recreational trail, on the bike trail. It goes right through South Market Park. So there certainly could be conflicts with trail users. But it's a potential possibility there. The next one is expanding our existing dog park. We probably don't have room to go northward with it, given the fact that it's the downtown snow dump area that's utilized during the winter times. But there may be a little bit of room to the south, although we don't want to take it all the way to 7th South because there's often sledding, that family sledding takes place down there during the snow season. So, but there would be a little bit of room to add on to the existing dog park. South German Park or the snow dump area is available in the summertime. You know, it doesn't get any municipal use in the summertime. So do we want an off-leash dog area that's only available during the non-snow months? That's a question and a possibility. Again, you know, relatively near the trail. Riverside Park is the next one, the south end. I've had some people request not to have dogs off leash in Riverside Park, and I've had other people say the south end of Lower Riverside Park could possibly work, right along the Minnesota River. There are some private residences to the south of that. The next one moving north is Minneconne Park, another large natural park. The south side of the Minnesota River is maybe a little bit of a developed area where we've got the boat ramp, the parking lot, boat landing, and a small picnic shelter, a trail, bridge, and a small picnic area. The north side of the Minnesota River, some people refer to as Wellner's Island, is about 100 acres of Minneconne Park. Not real accessible at the present time. You would basically go out towards the Y and the intersection of 14 and 15 and kind of bushwhack your way in there or walk in there. But as MnDOT completes the Gateway project, there may be a possible decent little access site to get out into that. Not really usable during high water, though. It certainly floods. It's in the floodplain. But if the water is within its bank, Wellner's Island is a beautiful natural area. Next one's a soccer field, dormant soccer field down by the Artwall Park, north of Miller Park. Presently not being used for soccer, but along the bicycle trail and the railroad. Next one is Fender Park, undeveloped neighborhood park up in Milford Heights. Milford Heights seems to be developing at a quicker pace now with residences. So, you know, right now Fender Park is not used for much of anything. It could possibly be an off-leash dog area until time that we develop the park and it's used as a neighborhood park. North Broadway, 2250 North Broadway, there's a lot of municipal-owned land out in the north end of the bike trail. The Pollinator Park uses a small portion of that. It was kind of a prairie grassland, and now trees have come in. So there's getting to be more woody vegetation in that area, which could possibly pose a problem for the dogs. And the last one on the list here is Lakeside Village Park, undeveloped neighborhood park in Lakeside Village. So that's the about approximately a dozen locations that staff has come up with as possible. None of these areas have potable drinking water or fencing, except for the existing dog park. And some of them have proximity to the trail, use areas of parks, residences, and railroad. We're not able to use stormwater retention ponds as dog areas. And there's no funding been designated for any of this work or designation. There may not be any cost involved if it's just simply designating a natural area or an open area. And then there's maps. So I will listen for a while. I've been talking too much. We've got 7 fine, intelligent commissioners here, and we're all ears on what your thoughts are.
All right, open it up for questions or comments on the overview that Director Schmitz provided. Director Schmitz, you had mentioned none have fencing in place today or the water access. How essential do you see both of those as to designating another off-leash park or area?
You know, Chair Fryer and Commissioners, I think the most important aspect of this is probably keeping these designated off-leash dog areas away from residences, trails, and use areas of other parks. So that kind of means some hinterland or some undeveloped park or some natural area.
I'd like to expand on that, Director Schmitz, and to that point, with the exception of Wellner's Island and maybe one other, it seems to me that there's considerable potential conflict with users of these parks. And I had an incident 2 summers ago along the trail down below the Pollinator Park, where a couple was walking with their dog. The dog was unleashed, even though it should have been legally leashed even at that time, but it was not. And the dog was walking very comfortably and orderly to the right of these folks on the grass area. I was heading to the south. And so I informed the people as I came up behind them that I was going to pass on the left. As I did that, the dog, for some reason, known only to the dog, took off in front of these folks and right in front of me. And it's a big dog. And we collided. I hit the dog sideways on. I went down. I had my helmet on, fortunately. I hit on the dirt, grassy area. And I was unable to stand for about 10 minutes because I would go faint. When I did stand, then I found out that my left shoulder, I couldn't raise my arm. It was, too painful. It took about 6 weeks to 2 months before I was able to raise my arm. And my doctor told me I had a slight concussion as a result. Now, this dog, I saw no signs of any aggression whatsoever, even with hitting the dog. The dog was placid. I think this is a really nice dog, but it was being a dog. And I think for the city to expose citizens to risks such as this, and who knows what other kind of risks might come about, I think is a mistake and could potentially be a serious mistake. So as I indicated, at this time at least, from what I see, Wellner's Island would be the only place that I feel that I could support.
Okay. So to that point of the designated areas that you had listed here, most of the others either have close proximity to a residential area and or the trail. Is that when I'm,
That's what I'm seeing, perhaps up by Fender Park, maybe not now, but in the future, it certainly would be, I would say.
other questions or comments from the commission?
And I know, you're saying also that there's no fencing. Well, eventually, I'm sure if they're gonna be no leash in there, you're gonna end up putting a fence up if you think you're gonna keep them away from anywheres, really. I mean, you know, that's what I think. I just, to be perfectly blunt, I think it's, you know, if a dog's gonna run loose like it did right there, they're probably apt to do anything at any time. I mean, they run in front of cars too. I mean, you know, if it's not fenced in, they can go out there and it could happen, you know? So I have a hard time if it's a public park and not being leashed. I really do. So.
Okay, thanks. Any others? Oh, we have a guest here, yeah. So if you would, come up to the mic and state your name and address to introduce yourself to the commission.
Hello, Commission. My name is Michael Shaneman. I live on 118 North Garden, representing the Soccer Association. And I just wanted to get on the list for a future meeting for soccer playing grounds. And this came up, and I just felt the need to speak up for the soccer field that has been designated as a dormant field. I don't know how many dogs are in need of playing on the soccer field, but we are in dire need of soccer fields in New Ulm. I don't know the numbers. Do you have numbers of dog owners that would need to use a park? Is there a demand that is such that we have to create such a space for 5 dogs? What is the demand? We have demand of 300 active children that are playing soccer. And that's what I would like to talk about at a future time, but to designate a designated soccer field as a dog park, I would be opposed to that.
Okay. Just for clarification for the commission, Director Schmitz, number 8 was the soccer field, and this, is that being utilized today? Or you have it as listed as dormant here?
Chair Fryer and Commissioners, it has been dormant for a few years, not being used, but I just heard today that the Soccer Association may have an interest in bringing it out of dormancy. It's also along the recreational trail, the bike trail, and the railroad. So if we were going to do an off-leash dog area there, I would say, number 1, we want to make sure it's not wanting to be used for soccer. And number 2, probably needs fencing.
Okay.
So it sounds like we may be bringing that dormant soccer field back online. I'm glad we didn't bulldoze it.
Okay, other questions or comments on the off-leash dog areas?
Has there been any input from, what's the name of the group that has kind of adopted the dog park that we have?
I have not heard any recent input from Happy Tales, Dog Park Group. They certainly were instrumental in promoting the leash law, the expansion of the leash law in the community. So given what I've heard here so far is that no one is recommending that we establish off-leash dog areas in any of these possible locations, except for maybe the north side of the Minnesota River and Minnicon Park, Wellner's Island. And I would then add to that I think an expansion of the existing dog park should probably be on the table, but that requires fencing cost. And then if we're going to look at fencing areas, I mean, this is not north side, south side. This is not spreading the dog areas around. But that snow dump in South German Park is only used in the wintertime when we have snow. And so it would require a significant amount of fencing, but you could have a large off-leash dog area there and still use it for a snow dump and keep the dogs off the trail. But again, that costs money, and this ultimately will be a city council decision.
Okay, anyone
Has,
feel,
has that Happy Tales, have they requested it to be expanded at all, or does it seem like it's adequate for them right now?
They do have an interest in an expansion to the south, a modest one, to include the oak trees that are just south of the existing dog park. They understand it can't go north without city council authorization because of the snow dump, but there is, some room to the south and not encroaching too far into the winter sledding area.
okay,
So yes, they are interested in that, and they would like to see that done soon. But I asked them to show us the money first. And they're actively fundraising for expansion and further improvements.
okay, so moving forward on this or next steps, unless I hear otherwise, it doesn't seem like there is a recommendation to add any of the proposed parks to the list, with the exception of possibly the island.
Weller's Island and Minnicon Park.
I think what I was sensing from the group here is, again, if there's city-owned property that is not in close proximity to either the trail or residential areas, that would seem best suited without any fencing. But it doesn't seem like we have a whole long list of options that
Correct.
meet that criteria.
Correct.
So is there specific action anyone would like to take this afternoon? Or, as Director Schmitz had indicated, we could be tabling this, given this was the initial discussion with the proposed locations, or at least the options, and revisit next month.
Probably table is, I think.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Others supportive of that?
Yeah.
All right, we'll bring this back next month. You have some time to look at all of these options and areas, or think of new options. All right, thanks, Director Schmitz. On to new business. Donations, also included in the packet was an action form to recommend acceptance of donations. Director Schmitz, do you want to provide a brief overview of those?
Yes, thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. There are 3 groups of donations offered to the city over the past month. The first 2 are for fitness programs, including the weight loss challenge in the first one. 60 bags of popcorn, Boom Chicka popcorn, valued at $60 from Angie's Popcorn. The second one is a 30-pound kettlebell with an estimated value of $40 from Sharon Olson. The third and final donation offered to the city is $500 cash from the Lost Dog and Fox Hunter Club for improvements at the trap and skeet range. I recommend that you forward these on to the city council for their formal acceptance.
Look for a motion.
I make a motion to pass them on to the city council.
I second it.
We have a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to new business item number 9, Neighborhood Healthy Connection Grant Application. I have listed here Supervisor Joey Schugel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Fryer and
Yeah.
Commissioners. I'm here to hope that you'll consider recommending to the City Council application for the Neighborhood Healthy Connections Grant through Allina Health. It's a grant that focuses on 2 main areas, really. Bringing social connections throughout the community through healthy eating and physical activity. And what the grant would be used for is a program called Rec on the Go that is projected to come out in the summer of 2018, and Rec on the Go is a mobile recreation, which means we would bring recreation to the community, really. And the main reason for this, or the great thing about a program like this, is it can knock down two main barriers that we see a lot. We see barriers of transportation, and we see barriers of cost. And what Rec on the Go would be is it would bring recreation throughout the community. So one week we go to maybe a city park, and 1 week we go to, it could be private property, with approval that way. And we're bringing different type of recreation and programming each time we go. It's going to always have physical activity involved, but it could be something as simple as a kickball game. But then 1 week it could be arts and crafts with a story walk with different partners that we have as well. So it's a trend. It's a national park and rec trend, and we're looking to capitalize on that here and offer it in the community here. The grant is for up to $10,000, and as I mentioned, it's through Allina Health. Their community engagement team at the New Ulm Medical Center locally is very active and involved in and interested in a program like this. So it would be a good fit, to send in an application for this grant. And as well, there's also other partners throughout the community that have shown great interest in being a part of this and some good excitement. So, does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Joey? Is there any investment for the city park and rec department that wouldn't be covered by the grant?
There, with some of the funding up in the air right now, but some staff costs would definitely be our investment, and staff costs in preparation for the program.
And you had mentioned it's a program that already has been launched in other communities. Do you have any sense of the success other communities have experienced, or what's the report?
There's actually been great success. One of the big proponents of it in Minnesota is Brooklyn Park has done this, and I've worked or talked a lot with staff there on how they're doing things. They received large grant funding. We're doing it on a little smaller scale. They actually received grant funding for a bus to go around places. We would do it with a trailer to cut costs, and one of our city vehicles already. The school district, which is one of our partners for this program, has already said we could use their trailer in the summertime to cut costs that way, which is great. And that's and Brooklyn Park has gears it. It's an open program for all ages, so there are some times when it makes it a little difficult when you're projecting a program for maybe teens and you get some of the younger kids to show up, but there's ways to work around that. They just said it's good to be prepared for anything, and that's something that we would do as well. Promotion is huge, and then getting the community investment. And I've been working hard to get local partners invested in this over the last few months to see if we can get this to go in New Ulm, and so far everyone is very on board and wants to be involved.
Right. Other questions, comments for Joey? Okay, so I think the request for today is just approving or supporting application for the grant. Is that correct?
Yes, and forwarding on to the city council for their authorization to apply for the grant.
Okay.
I
Doesn't
make
look
the
like we have any
motion.
more
Yeah.
questions, so we have a motion.
Yeah, make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second to support authorized application for the Neighborhood Healthy Connection Grant. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Joey. On to new business number 10, BMX camping. Again, there was a action form in the packet with a little more background. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This is the annual request from the BMX Club, River Valley BMX Club, that operates out of our BMX track. They host a Minnesota State qualifier race every summer. And this coming summer, it will be Friday, the weekend of June 29 through July 1st. And it brings in quite a number of families to this BMX state qualifying racing event. Some of those families stay in hotels and other lodging opportunities in our community. Some like to bring their camping RV or tents and stay near the BMX track on the northern section of South German Park near 3rd South Street. So it's against ordinance to camp, spend the night in one of our city parks, and unless it's authorized by the city council. So this comes to you for your review, and if you feel so inclined, you can send it on to the city council for their authorization. There's not been a problem with this in the past, and it's usually a very small number of camping units. I think it's something that you should forward on to the city council for their authorization.
Okay, any questions or comments? Would look for support or a motion.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Last item of new business, number 11, surplus items. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. 3 items no longer of use for operations at the Park and Recreation Department include a riding floor scrubber and a riding sweeper that have both been replaced with newer pieces of equipment. And then the final one is a paint booth that was purchased quite a number of years ago and has not been used and is not part of our operations at this point. So I'd like to forward these on to the city council for their authorization of disposition, and that would be that we'd offer them for sale to the public on govdeals.com.
Okay, any questions or comments? If not, we'd look for support in form of a motion.
I make the motion.
All right, we got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to reports. Director Schmitz?
Chair Fryer and Commissioners, I don't think I have anything special to add here. There's a lot of updates in writing there in the agenda packet. We are certainly beginning to tee up our summer construction projects because summer will be here before we know it. The winter season is beginning to wind down at the Civic Center with just a few weeks left of the hockey season, and then we'll be into the dry floor season after the figure skating show. It will be the camper show or the farm show, and then the camper show, and then the home show, and then the double wide garage sale. So it's a busy March and early April at the Civic Center just around the corner. So I don't know if there's any questions for us on the updates, but I have nothing else to add at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Director Schmitz or Assistant Director Corman? Okay, moving on to item number 13, Commissioner reports. Any updates or items to bring before the commission from our commissioners? We might have one. The mayor.
Not from a commissioner.
Yeah.
However, many of you have been reading the newspaper in the past and have seen a picture of Harmon Park with Joey and the plans that he and the Narren put together for a great time. Also, I want to thank, with your knowledge, thank Tom and Cheryl for allowing the Narren to provide transportation for me. My legs are still holding me up, but not if I'm going to be walking 4 or 5 or 6 blocks. So I got a chance to be with the Narren all Friday afternoon, and not necessarily in handcuffs, but almost. We had a good time, and with the Park and Rec cooperation, the party went on from Friday to Saturday, and it's just giving the people of Minnesota and outstate a good chance to come see New Ulm and see Minnesotans have fun, no matter what time of the year it is. So thank you, Park and Rec.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Okay, if there are no other reports this afternoon, thanks for great meeting, discussion. Our next meeting will be March 12th here at 4 p.m. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everyone.